Hello and welcome to 1136 Ministries podcast. I'm Lou Sloger and I'm glad you're here. I hope you continue to be blessed by this ministry. I hope you help us spread the word. I learned a new lesson about all these Facebook and YouTube and X kind of things, is that not only can you yourself subscribe, particularly on Facebook, I'm not sure how it works on every other platform, but you can share um, our podcast to your own feed or somebody else's. And we just want to encourage you to do that. Just help us get the word out. If you're being blessed by this ministry and these podcasts, please just let as many people know as possible. We've been doing this now for about a month, and it was a good time to think about and reflect of where we've been and where we are and where we hope to go with all of this. And it led me into further thoughts of the fact that I had been in the pastoral ministry for 41 years, and now I'm doing a podcast, and just how things change and how life has its ups and downs, and a lot of things don't end up or work out the way you thought. And I thought about one of my heroes, is Charles Spurgeon, and there was a theological controversy in Spurgeon's day called the downgrade controversy, where he was convinced that the Baptist Union was moving into liberalism and compromising the gospel, and he took his stand. When the vote came down of whether or not they were going to go this way or that way, and who was with Spurgeon, who was against him, and you got to appreciate it, at the time, Charles Spurgeon was maybe the most influential preacher in the world. Certainly one of them. And the vote went against him, something like 2000 to 7. He was overwhelmingly defeated. And it really, in fact, he took it so hard, his son felt that it in large measure led to his premature death. And you think to yourself, wow, what a way to end. And then this past week, I was with a friend and we were talking about these kind of things, just where we've been, where we're going. The Lord has done things and led us one way or another. And he told me about his dad, who had pastored for years and years and years, all of his adult life. And then when he passed away, though, they had to have the funeral in a church different from the one that he had pastored for so many years. He'd been gone there from there for a while, and different things happen in this sin-fallen world. But it's very tragic when you hear those kind of stories. And then my guess is all of us have those kind of stories in our lives where we're doing something, trying to be pleasing to God, trying to figure out what the right thing to do is, want to be useful and fruitful in the knowledge of Christ, want to be a blessing to as many people as possible. And then there are those times when a certain chapter comes to an end, or maybe your whole life comes to an end, and you look and go, wow, this is not what I thought was going to happen. And so I'm just going to give you some thoughts today about what's important. In Luke 10, you probably know the story about Martha and Mary. In fact, let me just read you a little bit of that. In Luke 10, it says, Martha was distracted with all of her preparations. And she came to Jesus and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the serving alone? Tell her to help me. But the Lord answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and bothered about so many things, but only one thing's necessary. For Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken from her. And what had Mary chosen to do was to sit at the feet of Christ and learn from him and hear from him. And there's that balance that we need to come through. We've talked about this before on one of the podcasts, of just, we want to cultivate our relationship with Christ, and there's nothing more important than that, to sit at his feet, to learn of him. Jesus invites us to take his yoke upon us, learn from him, become more like him, and that is the priority of life. At the same time, we've been called to serve. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your toil in the Lord is not in vain. But there are times when it seems like it is, and we ponder these things and we wonder why. For instance, Jesus heals 10 lepers. One came back and said, thank you. And you can go through life and realize how many people that you've helped along the way, and how many people have been truly grateful and taken the time to say thanks. How many have you helped along the way that you would have to say now have almost become your enemies, and for not very many good reasons. So we have to try to figure out what am I really doing? What really matters? Am I living a life that is worth living, that's going to end well? In this life, things don't always have a happy ending in this life. Spurgeon would say, if we could talk to him now, he'd say, yeah, 2007 is kind of a bad vote. The Apostle Paul could say, and again, you think about a guy who labored and gave and sacrificed, and he said, when it came time at my first defense, nobody stood with me. He writes to the Philippians and he says, I have nobody else except Timothy who's going to genuinely care about what you guys are going through and has your best interests at heart. And you say, how could that be? These are apostolic times. Jesus himself, obviously, from an outward perspective, from a temple perspective, died a failure. He was hung on a cross and suffered and died. Thankfully, for Christ especially, but then for all of us, how we end in this life isn't what's important. To the world, we look like losers. To the world, we look like failures. The difficulty is that while we're still plugging away in this life, and we had those setbacks, had those betrayals, had those, strained relationships or sad endings in a particular chapter, we have to remind ourselves God is holy and he's just and he's good and he is worth loving and he's worth serving. And what happens in this life is not nearly as important as what's going to happen in the life to come. Someday we'll all give an account. We'll stand before God, we'll give an account. And that's the day that will really matters. We should live our lives now, that no matter how a chapter or a season ends in this life, we want to be able to hear him say, well done, good and faithful servant. We need to remind ourselves. Let me read you this from Hebrews 6. And again, it's so important to remind ourselves when things aren't going well, when maybe we've lost a friend or a job or a situation has gone south on us. Listen to what this says. This is Hebrews 6:10. For God is not unjust, so as to forget your work and the love which you have shown toward his name, and having ministered and still ministering to the saints. What a comfort that is, that even though only one in 10 lepers come back to say thanks, even though sometimes the people you help the most turn on you the worst, even though things end poorly in this life, God is not unjust so as to forget your love and the labor and the ministry you've shown to his people. There's a great comfort in that. So as we go through this life, we want to serve, we want to get to know Christ better. And then my encouragement to you is to have your priorities correct. In 2 Corinthians 11:3, it's one of my life verses. And Paul is writing to a Corinthian church that had all sorts of troubles. You read 1st and 2nd Corinthians, you realize that it's a church with problems. And he said this, I fear, lest as the serpent deceived Eve by his craftiness, that your minds would be led astray from the simplicity and purity of devotion to Christ. When we're living our lives, what's most important is our own walk with Jesus, our own commitment to him, our own love for him. What we're doing or not doing at a given point in time isn't the priority. Whether or not things are being successful at a given point in time is not our priority. We need to be people who are walking with God. This is a profound thing, but in Hebrews 11, you all know this. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. And I want to live a life that is pleasing to God. And the temptation then is to do this or to do that, or to sacrifice this or to give that, or to volunteer for this, because I want to be pleasing in God's sight. So I'm going to do these things and do these things and do these things. But at the end of the day, we come back to that simplicity of this. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. The number one priority of the believer is to believe. Believe on him who he has sent. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. And trust your soul to a faithful creator. No matter what, no matter who, no matter how, trust and obey. There's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. As I ponder my own life, the last month, the last year, the last 40, I'm thankful for a lot of things. I'm thankful for God's salvation, for his call into the ministry. I'm thankful for my wife and son. I'm thankful for so many things. I'm a blessed man. At the same time, I'm an honest man who lives in a sin-fallen world. And there are many things where I could say, well, that didn't work well. This thing came to a poor conclusion. Went to Haiti twice for ministry. And from my perspective, Haiti was the most difficult place I've ever been. Just spiritually oppressive, a real challenge. And I think from a human perspective, our labors there were not productive, not fruitful. And so I prayed and asked the Lord that if it pleases him, I don't need to go back to Haiti. There are other better men can do a better job. And it was discouraging because you make this significant investment of time and energy, and people supported it financially, and you go and it's like, well, that ain't work. And there's a lot of things like that. There are people who are raising their children, doing the best they can. And for at least a season, the kid ends up being a rebel. There are people who get married and sadly get divorced. There are all kinds of things that we go through life where for a chapter or a season, it's not a happy ending. And we've got to come back to go, well, what do I do then? What's important? Well, what's important is your faith in who Jesus is and what he's done. There was a young man many years ago, struggled with the assurance of his salvation. And I met with him time and time again. And he would, every time we met, he would say, I'm doing this, and I'm promising God that, and I'm trying to do this. And so finally, it kind of dawned on me. And I say, hey, listen, how about this? Don't promise God anything. Believe his promises to you. Don't do anything for Jesus. Receive what he's done for you. And it was a significant transformation that I saw in his life when he quit trying to do or to promise or to obey in a way where he wanted to earn God's favor or to be pleasing in his sight, and to recognize, no, our number one priority is to trust, it's to receive, it's to submit to him, and to first receive his love for us, and then do our best to love him back. So ponder these things. I'm not sure where all of you are in your life, what season of life you're in, whether you're at the mountaintop or in a valley. But I do know this, there's never going to be a day when the number one priority of your life is not going to be trust and learn of Christ. Make him your ultimate daily priority. There is only Christ, and he is everything. He's everything we need him to be. He's everything for us in time, and he'll be everything for us throughout all eternity. Life is full of ups and downs, and bless God that there's just genuinely consistent thing, and that's his love for us, put on display in the person and in the work of his own son. I hope that you're going through a pleasant season right now. I hope you can say, God has been leading me beside still waters, and I'm thankful. But some of you might be in a hard-pressed time, a hard time of just trial, of difficulty, of pain. And I just want to encourage you, strengthen the things that remain. Follow Mary's example and sit at the feet of Christ and learn of him. That's choosing the good thing. Make the most of your relationship with him every moment of every day. And then whatever else happens, it'll be okay. We have this promise, right? From Isaiah, thou will keep in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Isaiah 66 tells us this, to this one will I look, to him who is humble and contrite, and who trembles at my word. Just sit at his feet. As the psalmist says, be still and know that he is God. All right. Have a great weekend. God bless you all. Again, help us get the word out. Thank you for your prayers. Appreciate all your support. I hope this ministry continues, and I hope that you're blessed by it. Drop us a line. Let us know, 1136ministries@gmail.com. If you want us to cover a topic or you have a question. But most of all, I just love to hear from you to see how you're doing and if you're encouraged by this ministry. So thank you very much. Or again, YouTube, X, Facebook. Appreciate all that, and have a great weekend, and God bless you all very much. Bye-bye.